All right. Hello and welcome, everyone. My name is Oscar Malm Wiklund, and I'm the community manager of Norrsken House. We are a impact powerhouse in central Stockholm, supporting impact entrepreneurs in many different ways. And today we have a webinar hosted by one of our members, Ministry of Programming. So I'm going to hand it over to our speaker for today, and I'm going to let you introduce yourself. So take it away.
Thank you, Oscar, for opening up. So I'm Resad Zacina. I'm the founder of Ministry of Programming, which is a tech powerhouse specialized in helping startups. And what we do is that we help both early stage and later stage startups to accelerate their growth and build better solutions. We do not do only technology, so we help also with many other things like even fundraising and everything that is needed in a startup to make it succeed. So today we're going to talk about remote work, specifically in product teams, and I hope everybody is going to be happy and that is going to be interesting, so we can learn something together. Let's just wait a couple of minutes, maybe Oscar, to see if we have more people joining. All right, then let's start. So today, as I said, I'm going to talk about remote work in product-oriented startups. To begin with, I'm going to say a couple of things about my remote journey. So my journey began basically in 2008 when I landed my first job at the bank. Obviously, in Raiffeisen Bank at that time, you could not work remotely. So I was like an employee in the office. And at that time, I didn't even understand the startup culture, or like I didn't know anything about this world out there. And my actually first experience as a, let's say, distributed work was when I joined a local consulting company that was doing work with USA teams. So that was from 2010 and 2013. And that was really interesting because for me, it was a new experience, of course. And, we were a team that was augmenting other teams in the US, specifically in Atlanta, Georgia. And it was a lot of different styles of communication compared to my previous experiences, and there I really learned a lot. My real remote work experience, like as a full-time remote worker, started in 2013 when I started working for a startup called Stylemarks in Berlin, and I was the only. There were only two of us that were remote, and it was the CTO and me. I was like a lead web developer at that time. And, that was for me the first time that I was actually getting to know what it means to work like as a full remote worker. And I had to have my nice home setup to make sure that I have some sort of set schedule at home to work. And yeah, I mean, it was as well very eye revealing. After that, I continued to work fully remote for a company from London. So let's say this phase lasted for about 1.5 years. one interesting thing from that period is that I was indeed working really hard, because usually when you are doing these kind of jobs, people expect a lot from you, and you need to do like an extra effort to make it work as a peer to an office, to an actual office crew. And I could feel as a remote peer, I could feel the atmosphere that was going on in those offices. But as I was not there, I was always feeling that I was kind of missing out. But yeah, I managed to make it work, and yeah, it was a successful period. After that, I moved to Stockholm, and I was there for a couple of years working on a startup called Fishbrain, which is the biggest app for fishermen in the world. And yeah, Fishbrain at that time had like a flexible and remote work policy, so you could work remotely when you needed. So I continued to work remote at least a part of my time. And yeah, finally, when I founded Ministry of Programming in 2015, I had to adjust to a different schedule. This time I was a founder and a remote executive, which was much different. The type of work that I was doing compared to when I was a developer was much different, but yeah, it was quite interesting as well. So as a mostly remote executive, I managed to build an FT 1000 company, which is like the list of fastest growing companies in Europe. So we landed there this year. We are in the top 20%. And also we are the only company outside of the EU on that list. So you can see down there, this calendar is taken from a tool called Timetastic, which is a leave planner that we use at MOP. And it shows you those green days are the days when I was remote. So I was not that much in the office, but yeah, I'm kind of making it work. So as I said, I had quite a lot of experience from these, let's say, full remote or combined environments. On some of these pictures, you can see me collaborating with people all over the world before MOP, or even, let's say, when I was in New York for a month, working from a co-working space in New York. So I had these periods when I was traveling and working at the same time. It was really cool. Now I have 2 kids, so I'm mostly working from home, which is good as well, and also a different experience. So one interesting thing about MOP is that we have first-hand experience with more than 45 startups and their remote work routines and rules. So we work with those startups in many different ways, but we definitely have a lot of insights. So some of the startups that we worked or still work with are on this list. Some of them are quite well known in the Swedish community. So Amuse, which is voted like by Fast Company as the #8 most innovative startup this year. Mindler, mental health, also War on Cancer, a really good team as well. Wear Labs, Fishbrain, etc. So there is this notion that people need to pick to like, should we work in the office, or should we do like some sort of remote setup, or at least like a remote friendly setup? And I think this is actually a false dichotomy, because you can have the best of both worlds, and that's actually what we are trying to do at MOP. So as you can see here, we have a really nice office at MOP. So everybody would like to work from here at least a part of their time. But people can actually choose if they want to work from the office, or they want to work from another location. We have people that are working from Stockholm, from Miami, from Sarajevo, different cities in the Balkan region, etc. Also, many of our co-workers are choosing to work from other parts of the world. So you can see here some pictures from Thailand, where Ayla was there a couple of times, and also a couple of other people from the team. Some of our coworkers were spending, I don't know, like 6 months or 1 year in Thailand working with us. And this is not anything like groundbreaking. It's pretty normal in the tech community to have this kind of setup. But having gone through every step of it, for us, it was a really good experience. You can also see here a picture of the War on Cancer team in Norrsken House. So we do a lot of traveling between the Sarajevo headquarters of MOP, and we travel often to the cities where the startups are located, and then we work together. So that works quite well. You can also see here another nice picture from a mountain resort, where our VP of operations likes to spend some time in these nice places. So pretty much everyone have a great use of remote work. Of course, there are people in the team that prefer the office, and that's fine as well. So I think, as I said, it's a false dichotomy to say that it's the one is better compared to the other. It's very important to understand that you make an environment that works for you, not something that is by the book, or I don't know. But yeah, I mean, a couple of interesting stories as well from the people that are more like office oriented. We had even some people that we hired in the beginning that were sleeping at the office when we started the company. They took it very seriously. Or we had a guy, Dino, who was coming to the office just to have fun during the day, and he was working at night. So I'm telling you these stories because it's very important to understand that we are all different, and we need to pick how we work. And what works for you might not work for me. And as a leader, we understand that we need to allow people to express themselves also in that way. So let's also set some baseline about the different kinds of remote work setups. First, you have a type of setup which is full remote teams. These are teams like Buffer, Zapier, Basecamp. These teams are all remote, so they don't even have a physical office, and it's a quite radical way of working for most people, and it requires a very different set of rules, because you don't get to meet the people very often. You need to make sure that you meet at least, I don't know, a couple of times per year on some common activities and team buildings. And it's a model that works very well for some companies, but let's say most don't understand it, and it feels very radical to them. The most popular model of remote work is definitely the distributed teams model, where you have teams that are, let's say, in one location, and then you have other teams that are in other locations. But we will go into that in more detail on the next slide. Some companies that work in a distributed fashion are like Mindler, War on Cancer, Mio Muse from Stockholm. And then you have also the third type, which is like full flexible environments, like the one what we have, which is where it is possible for people to work fully remotely, or they can be in the office. Theoretically, if we would hire a lot of people that want to work remote, at some point maybe we would not need the office at all. Yeah, I mean, this is working pretty well, as we also have more than 100, around 100 people now, and it's still manageable. One thing that is important to note here is that because we have quite a big team, and we're working at the same time on around 16 products, we allowed people to choose. So every product lead is choosing how the team is organized and how the team is going to work, of course, in collaboration with the rest of the team. And some teams, for example, choose to work like fully remotely. Some teams are more like office based, and it works pretty well. So just to explain more the different types of distributed setups. So the first type is the satellite office. So this model is the easiest to operate, and there is like an unidirectional line of delegation from headquarters to remote teams with specific projects by teams. This is something that is usually employed as well with outsourcing companies. So the headquarter office that is located in New York or Stockholm or Berlin or whatever, let's say, employs an outsourcing company or consulting company in Vietnam or Bosnia, Ukraine, and then delegates some pieces of the work or projects to those teams. A second model is called local ownership. This model requires really strong local leadership with talent-dependent teams. And each localized team owns a special project, while the HQ serves only as overseeing the holistic vision. So this type of organization is let's say more distributed in its core. So the people from the different satellites are more autonomous. So they're working on, let's say, bigger chunks of work, and then they integrate all in one, but they are coordinated from one specific place. So there is not like a very, let's say, hard division of work between, like it is in the first example. And the last model that we also have in some of the products where we are involved is, so this one is basically called a true partnership, and is the most difficult to execute because it relies on mature teams, typically within R&D, sub teams at an headquarters, and local teams work on overlapping projects. So this is as well a more integrated model where people work together and they are organized like in verticals, but there is no division that is maybe visible by just looking at the offices all over the world. So let's say it can happen that in one vertical, you have a team from Vietnam and a team from Stockholm working on the same thing. So I think personally that this model is much better, and this is something that we generally aim for as a company to have when working with distributed teams. Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting. What happened now is that coronavirus, COVID-19, moved all of us into full remote setups overnight. And yeah, we can see that a lot of people are struggling, and they are now forced to build remote teams and policies, which they didn't have before. Also, a lot of people personally are getting adjusted to this new way of working. And maybe they have their kids at home, maybe they never worked in this way before, but now they need to learn how to. And of course, it's not an easy thing to do. And in reality, we must admit that also a lot of people are struggling. We can also see in our network that a lot of people are lonely, are depressed, and generally don't know how to behave in this situation. So it is of utmost importance that that every leader of a product or whoever is let's say leading the company, is it like a team of co-founders or one person or whatever, we need to make decisions like about the way how we communicate, and we need to make sure that everybody is included, even if they are working at their home offices for the first time. So we cannot neglect, especially video communication, I would say. One thing that everybody does is basically they just take all of these tools that they used at the office and all of these routines, and they just transfer them to the online world. But a very important thing that they cannot transfer, and that is very hard to transfer, is the actual human connection and everything that happens in the office, and the water cooler conversations, making coffee together, going to a lunch break together and stuff like that. So we cannot underestimate this at all. As I said, it's not only about the tools. You can have all the tools in the world, but if you are not very empathetic about the people that are working with you and understanding their human needs, the tools are not going to work in the long run. So for now, in some countries, there is like a full lockdown in place. It's not the same, obviously, in every country, but so can you imagine how lonely you can get, like after a month or 2 or 3 of a full lockdown? Nobody knows how long this is going to last with coronavirus, but we just need to be very conscious about this and do whatever we can. So it's not about the tools. It's not about Todoist and Google Calendar, Evernote, Jira, whatever you're using. It's about this human connection and making sure that you understand everybody's position. let's face it, remote work is really terrifying in general for most managers and employers, because the managers are interested in questions like these. So the managers are interested like in questions like, how can I get Anna to deliver more? Or I want this team to collaborate to solve this issue faster. And of course, for most managers, it's the easiest way is to have everybody around them. So you see them by their computer, and you are assuming that if everybody are sitting in the same place, and if somebody is sitting 8 hours at a desk, that work gets done there. But that's simply not true. And of course, there are other organizational challenges why, in general, organizations choose not to go for the remote work, even if they are forced to right now. But these are the reasons why they don't go for it. So some of the reasons are, in general, security concerns and lack of trust in the team, which is one of the main pillars. Second reason is no experience with remote work at all. Also, a lot of people have bad experience with remote team members or teams. It might be that you worked with the team in Ukraine or China or whatever in your previous company, and a lot of people had a bad experience, and now they want only to hire locally. Also, many teams don't know how to split work in a remote team. This is a common problem that we have noticed in startups, is that if you have, let's say, 10 people or 20 people sitting in Stockholm, they don't know how to split the work, or they don't know which parts of the system would be suitable for somebody else to do. Also, in general, a big problem in startups is that there is no documentation of any sort. There is no like, I mean, some people do have something, but let's say 95% of the cases, the documentation is at least lacking. So it's very hard to onboard new people in non-conventional ways, to onboard people online, let's say. Also, the language barrier. There are teams that are quite non-diverse, and diversity is not only related to gender, which is very important, but it's also related to having people from different backgrounds, with different, there are different, let's say, in a cognitive way. So they are coming from different parts of the world, speaking different languages. And we encountered many cases where, let's say, a team had the whole system for working was set up in a specific language. It was not English, and it was very hard to get on board, because people could not understand like how, they could not understand the language. So can you imagine working via Google Translate the whole day? It's quite hard, right? You're going to have a productivity hit. So another problem was that organization perceive, and why they don't want to introduce remote work, is the lack of conversation and human feel, as we described. That's quite a big problem. Also, of course, it's very hard to control, because both security-wise, presence-wise, however you want to think about it, you have somebody somewhere working with you. You cannot see that person, and as a manager, it's very hard to get used to it. And in general, many people feel that it's easier to work in place and collaborate. And one more thing that we have noticed in let's say, even most of the startups that we work with, is that there is a big pressure from investors and VCs to have a team in place. And this is a mindset change that needs to happen in the coming years. So I would use a chance here to recommend you a really good book on this topic. It's called Exponential Organizations. So read that one, and there are many good examples of how people scaled their companies by using, let's say, distributed teams. So as we said, trust is the biggest factor for working remotely. So if there is no trust from the manager, from the employer, from the founder, from the team, from the peers, from developers, designers, whoever is involved, if there is no trust, remote work is impossible. And usually the environments that are not able to manage or introduce remote work have a big problem with trust. And the trust starts from the founder first, and then it goes through everyone else. So of course that the founder of the company is setting the pace and is setting like the example in these cases. There are also personal challenges for remote work that I would like to mention. So a lot of people struggle with poor time management. They don't know how to manage their time. If they're at home, they wake up at different time frames. maybe they're hungry, they want to eat something, they want to take a walk. So it really gets hard if you don't have like the social pressure that you have in the office when people are looking at you and what you're doing. Sometimes it's hard to manage your time. Also, the non-familiarity with tech tools in general. There are a lot of people that are non-techie. They are like, from, let's say, older generations. They are not used to all the cool tools and things that we use today. They don't know how to use a thread in Slack. For them, it's still about the phone and the email, which is fine. But these people struggle really in a great way with remote work. Also, most of the people are used to an office environment. Why? Because we have been doing it for hundreds of years. So, people used to work together in some specific locations, and now working over the wire like this, it's a very hard change. Also, a lot of people don't know how to split between the home and personal, and this is a problem as well now in this situation when you have kids at home, because kids will interrupt you, and people don't have a designated work environment. They don't have a desk. They don't have a room like the one where I'm at right now. Also, many report that they're working too much when remote. This is pretty common. So they don't know where to stop. They don't know where is the line between work and the life. So they choose to do too many breaks during the day. So I don't know, maybe you watch a Netflix movie at 11 a.m. and then you say to yourself, okay, I'm gonna continue at 3 p.m. with my work, and then I'm gonna work until late. So if you continue doing that, at some point your work and life are going to be one, and you're not going to know the difference. So you're gonna find yourself replying to Slack messages at even 2 a.m. in the morning, or you're just not gonna be able to have a balanced lifestyle. Many also think that nothing gets done at home in cafes, and they just work too little. So there is an opposite. Some people work too hard, other ones work too little at home. They don't know how to put themselves in this, let's say, work mood and productivity mood. And obviously there are distractions all over the place. So you can go to the kitchen, you can go to the balcony, you can go outside, you can go to take a ride with the bicycle. There is no one there to tell you that you can't. A lot of on the other side, a lot of managers are putting some control mechanisms to make sure that you are there. In some of my remote work experiences, I even had the green dot there to make sure that I was online all the time, because the people that were paying me, my employer was paying me by the hour, and they wanted to make sure that I'm sitting there at my desk. So I would usually sit from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. every day, and they were not even taking lunch breaks on many days. So it was really, really hard. And of course, when you're at home, you don't have much of a social interaction like you have in the office. And yeah, this is also one of the big problems. Here are a couple of pictures that are displaying some of the common issues. As I said, you can choose if you are going to sleep a bit longer, or you're just a bit depressed, or you want to watch a Netflix movie and continue later. There are a lot of these distractions and issues that can happen when working remotely. Let's now move to the good side. So I think it's actually good for startups to have at least some remote people. One of the main benefits, of course, is the cost saving, where you can cut costs on office space. Also, you have, let's say, cheaper hiring options when you are evaluating people from all over the world. And this is a really important thing because eventually a lot of startups die because of money reasons. They don't have enough runway with their funding that they received, or and of course, when you hire a local team in an expensive city like New York, like Berlin, London, etc., your runway is going to run very thin in a short amount of time. I recall that we were spending like a couple of million euros per year easily on our tech team in Stockholm when I was working there. Of course, also when you are you have better work satisfaction in general when you have an option to work remote. Because then you can make your own choices. You can spend more time with the family. You can do the things that you like. Sometimes you can use the lunch break to train instead of being socially pressured to go to a lunch with your coworkers. You can do many things. Of course, you can do those as well in the office, but definitely when you are remote, you can also choose the location where you're working. So in general, it's a better work satisfaction. Also, as I said, hiring top talent all over the world. The talent is not located only in one location. Sometimes it's easy to think the best people are in New York, in London, etc. But yeah, maybe they are. But the problem is that Spotify, King, Google, they are hiring the best people, and for you, it's really tough to get to hire the top 1%. As I also mentioned before, you can have more diversity in the team by hiring people that are from all over the world. Also, a lot of companies point out the sustainability factor, which is that you don't you have a lower carbon footprint when you are working from home, or you're not moving around that much with your car. And yeah, one more important thing that is also that you can scale the teams in different manners when you have a distributed work environment. So as a company, this is very important because sometimes you need to scale down as well. It's not only about scaling up. Your hiring routine in a big city is much more different than hiring a team, let's say in Vietnam, and working with them for just a couple of months on a specific set of features. You can scale down quickly if you need to, and especially because of labor laws that are in some countries like Sweden. Labor laws are quite restrictive, and it's important to be able to do this for a startup in order to survive in the long run. What are the top 10 reasons why people want to work remote? 48% of the people want to save money. Some other people want to work from some other locations, also spend time with family, spend time with pets, or they just want even to start a family, as you can see here. So this is a reason to to work more remotely. And yeah, I mean, I think these are all valid reasons actually, and it shows you how much people can accomplish in these kind of environments. So I really believe that even one remote person in a team can make your company better. So it's not about that person. It's about the measures that you need to take as a company to make that person able to work remotely. One of the interesting moves that we did at MOP is that we hired Jessica Shelley, who was our COO, now is our CRO. We hired like a C-level person to work with us remotely from Stockholm, and the C-level team was located in other locations. So this was a really as well interesting experience, and I think this experience specifically made our company much better. And also having other people, developers, designers, product managers in different locations can make the company much better, because you need to set some ground rules for communication, how you operate, etc., which benefit the whole company in the end. So now we're going to move into a quick tips and tricks section. Of course, there are many things that we could cover in this presentation, but I decided to cover just a couple of tips and tricks, so we don't end up using all of your time. I know it's in the middle of the workday, so I also want to leave some time for questions. There is this interesting tool for the people that are missing the workplace. It's called Sococo, and what it does is that you can designate some sort of office environment online, and then people can join, let's say, an engineering room, or they can join in another room, and then you can see who is online and who is in a specific room. So you can structure like the communication and conference rooms and everything in a visual way. And by clicking on the left on the names, you can also call people directly. You can call a room. You can do a lot of things. So I don't know. This is quite radical, but if you are really missing the workplace, you can also design it online and try something else, something different. The most important thing is to communicate. So you can communicate in many different ways. The majority of product teams that we are involved with use Slack, and nowadays Slack is a central component for the communication of full product teams. We also know by fact that Slack is a bit problematic because it is a synchronous tool. So when somebody writes you something on Slack, they pretty much expect that you are going to respond to them in a timely manner, or at least in a couple of hours. So this creates a lot of problems in the collaboration, and a lot of product teams nowadays are looking for some alternatives to generally synchronous communication. It doesn't need to be Slack. It can be Skype. It can be whatever chat client you're using. So a lot of people are looking for alternatives because they cannot go in deep work. It doesn't allow them to have a nice work routine during the day if everybody is talking on Slack. Yeah, but it's still a very good tool. And as I said, it's not about the tool, it's about how you are using it, what kind of rules you are setting up. But I mentioned this because I noticed that most of the teams are really bad at this, and usually they just use Slack. So let's say 90% of the whole communication of the whole team is happening via Slack. Of course, email is still there. We should use it. We should also use some other tools that are there, like Google Hangouts or Zoom, etc., which, in my opinion, are extremely important tools. So the video chat tools are the most important thing when working in a remote setup, because you need to make this connection. You need to be there with your team. And the best way is via video. The best way is via collaboration, and as human as it gets. As I said, it's very important to have rituals. So there are some methodologies for like Scrum that make it like a bit easier to make a framework in your head on how to, let's say, to build tech, build software, or whatever you're building. And it's very important to have those weekly meetings and rituals, to have daily stand-ups in the morning, to see face-to-face people for, I don't know, 15 minutes on a daily stand-up and talk, what are we going to build, what are we going to build today, and then have maybe a retrospective meeting every week or every 2 or 3 weeks, where we talk about what we accomplished, what was wrong, what was good. Also have regular demos. A lot of people have demos on Fridays. It's a good way to end the week if on a Friday you present what the team has accomplished. Also, this one, I cannot stress enough how important it is to be transparent, because if you're not transparent, if you're not communicating enough, people are not going to know what you're working on. And believe me, this is one of the things that people do really wrong. They are not transparent enough. They don't understand the concept of transparency. I even have a saying that I'm spreading inside the company, which is that the direct messaging is your worst enemy. So as soon as you resort to direct messaging, you need to make a conscious decision about what are you going to write to that person. And if it is a decision or something important for the rest of the team, it should still be documented in some way. You should document it in Evernote, in your notes app that you use, and you should send it to the rest of the team, or you should document it in Jira, Confluence, whatever you're using, because information gets lost. We cannot underestimate this thing as well. Inside MOP and other companies as well use Notion, which is quite a cool tool, which is like, I call it a ninja tool for organizing the workload. And this tool allows you to do a lot of things. We use it also for a wiki, where we have some clear rules of engagement for the whole company. And when new members are onboarded, they get through the wiki and they understand what are their rules of conduct, how they need to operate in the company. And then it doesn't matter if they are sitting in a cafe or if they are remote or whatever from some other place, they know how to behave, they know what is expected from them. So this is the number one thing. If you have clear rules, people are going to do a better job. Also, when people are remote in any of these combinations, tracking progress is extremely important, and you need to track progress and evaluate the work, because that's the only way that you know that people are progressing. So you cannot see them anymore and assume that they are working. You need to have a very clear setup for tracking progress, doing development talks with people, talking with them about their career, about where they want to go, about the stuff that they're learning. Do all the regular, let's say, people operations or HR procedures that you would have in the office, or let's say in a regular company. In terms of development, one thing that is the best practice is continuous integration and development. So what this means for the non-technical people, maybe on this presentation, is that every piece of work that developers do needs to be integrated as soon as it is finished. So you're not going to wait for, let's say, Anna to integrate a new feature for a couple of weeks into the development pipeline. As soon as something is done, it needs to get in there from with a commit, like your tool, Jenkins, and the whole Kubernetes setup or whatever you have is going to pick it up. And as you see here in this picture, it is released on an environment where people can see the progress. So of course, like using these heavy tools is not the only way to show progress. There are other non-technical techniques that can be used, like taking screenshots of your work during the day, or you can record a video of what you're working on. And that way you also build trust, and it bridges a lot of these problems that we see in remote work environments. Also, live collaboration. This is especially important for management and creative work as well, like UX UI design, and the collaboration between product managers and UX UI designers. So you do some mock-ups in a live tool, you comment on them. This tool specifically is Miro, which we use a lot lately, and it's really good for collaboration, because everybody sees the changes in a live way. You can be on a call like this one and just work together on this. Also, one more interesting way to work together is with sticky notes. A lot of people resort to it, and they do these boards, where people can put some notes together. They can brainstorm, they can ideate, they can comment on things, etc. So it's a really good and interactive way to work together. And as I said, over communicate. There is no such thing as communicating too much, especially when we are all remote. We need to make sure that that we write in a clear way, even, let's say, in a more extensive way compared to when we are working in an office, because whatever detail you write in addition to what you would actually just say in a couple of sentences is going to help the team to understand better the context. One technique that I use as well lately to maximize my hours and productivity is dictation, and also I do audio recordings. So this is a really cool thing that I would like you to explore. So dictation is enabled on your phones today, and you can use dictation also when you're writing on Slack or when you're writing notes or whatever. And there was an analysis that I ran into that says that dictation is 3 times faster than typing. So for the ones out there that think that dictation is not worth a try, I challenge you to try it, because you're going to be much faster and you're going to be able to track the things that you're doing more quickly, which eventually saves time. I have 2 kids, and I need to squeeze every inch of inch of time or space that I have. So another one is audio recordings. So sometimes I record audio and I put it on a channel, for people to listen on, to give more context. I can also record video of myself with the phone, post it to the channel so people can understand the message better. And of course, this is not good for everything, because then you lose the metadata of the conversation and you cannot search it after. But still, I think it might be a good thing to try. One good thing that to do is also actively seek for feedback. Here, I pasted a message from Melissa. Melissa is a designer on the War on Cancer team. So she opened up a channel called Design Critique Wall, where she's encouraging everyone from the team to comment on the designs, to tell what they like, what they don't like. Usually one of the biggest problems in the collaboration in product teams is actually the collaboration between the designer and the product manager and other parts of the team, because there is a lot of these people that are holding their feedback. You know, they don't want to tell something that they notice. The same goes for quality assurance. A lot of times, in a lot of like unhealthy environments, quality assurance does only, let's say, some sort of testing or something that is not hurting the team too much. So they're not going to scream on the channels. They're not going to, but I always say it's your job to highlight the issues. It's your job to tell, let's say, Melissa, that you don't like a design or there is like a usability problem, etc. So we need to adopt this mindset of being very open to each other, which is much, much harder when we are remote, because, you know, we miss that human touch, we miss that feeling. We cannot explain ourselves in the same way as we would like in real life with words. And I think that eventually it's really important that you show an example as a leader. The leader needs to lead the pack. The leader needs to show what are the best routines to work. As I said, of course, this is not an easy thing to do, because also there are a lot of people in your teams, and especially if you are a 100 people team like we are at MOP, when you have 16 different products, we cannot force everyone to work in the same manner. So that's why a lot of companies like Spotify as well, and I don't know, Klarna, etc. They are allowing a little bit more of autonomy in the team. So as soon as the company gets bigger, there is more autonomy in the teams, and they allow people to organize themselves. But eventually, the pace that you set as a leader for transparency, for communication, for remote work style, for rules, for the general culture is the first step. And yeah, let's not forget for time for fun and bonding when we are remote. We take this for granted when we are in the office. We can go to a nice lunch to a Lebanese restaurant together. We can, we can drink something at night. We can go for a beer. We can do whatever. But if we are all remote, we cannot make it only about work. We need to find time to call somebody and have fun, to show somebody, let's say, our apartment or work setup, or make people meet our family or whatever makes sense. And a lot of these things are also facilitated by the leadership. We as a company and in some of our teams, we are experimenting with different setups for this. And surely now that we are moving from, let's say, a fully flexible environment that is both an office and remote environment, now that we're moving into full remote, there are other things that we are experimenting as well. So it's not that we are doing everything right. I think that is an experimentation game. So yeah, thank you. I will not take much more time. I hope it was interesting. So now maybe we can move to some questions. Let's see, in the chat, we have only one question so far. So King Tedros asked, what was the name of that tool again? I don't know what tool are you referring exactly, but I mentioned Timetastic for leave, as a leave planner. I mentioned Notion as a Ninja team tool to organize your workflows and everything else. And also other tools like for video conferencing, Zoom, Google Hangouts, which are pretty well known, but also Miro I will type it in the chat. So Miro is a pretty cool tool for collaboration and working together. So yeah, thank you, Jessica, for writing a couple of these tools down. So if there are no more questions, maybe we can. Okay, so let's see. Seima Kudic is asking, what is your perfect ratio of remote and office work? So I would not say that there is like a perfect ratio for this work. The ratio is the one that is the best for your team. So you choose what works for you. As I said, not everyone can be productive from a remote work standpoint. A lot of people are more productive in the office. So remote work will not work for everyone, and the ratio is what you pick and what you make work for your team. Yeah. Okay, then I don't see any additional questions. In any case, you can contact me via Twitter, Instagram, or email, or whatever you want. But yeah, sorry, there are more questions now. How much time do you spend on documenting versus communicating? Referring to your comment on the fact that it's good to keep documenting. So this is a good question. We definitely communicate more than we document, and maybe this is something that we can improve as well. We have a rule where we have meeting notes after every meeting, especially in the leadership team, because every bit of information is very important and cannot be lost. At the level of the product teams, it's also a rule that everything should be in Jira or Trello or the tool that you're using. So every visible progress or comments should be also found in those tools. Thank you, Johan Lundström, for highlighting GitLab as another remote company. It's one of the biggest players in the game as well. So Johan in the chat posted also some nice links about the GitLab culture and how they work remotely. There are also many other interesting tools that people are writing on about in the comments. Let's wait now a minute or two to see if there are more questions. So yeah, there is a question about Notion versus Todoist. So Notion is a ninja tool where you can build pretty much anything. So you can build wiki pages, you can have I don't know, some Kanban boards for structuring your work tickets, or you can have also some sort of simpler spreadsheets there compared to Google Sheets or Excel. And on the other hand, Todoist is a tool that is a to-do list, and arguably it's the best to-do list out there. So it's the best tool for to-do lists out there, and also Todoist is a company that is fully remote. The next question is, what have you, as a part of the leadership, found to be a useful part of your routine to get control and make sure people deliver on time and good quality? I think the best routine is again the routine that you set up for yourself. What we do is we have regular catch-ups with everyone in the team. So our people operations department is communicating with everyone on a daily basis. We also have like an open door policy where people can come to us and tell whatever they think, whatever they're working on. In terms of tracking and controlling, as I said, we use mostly Jira, Trello, Asana on the products that we are building. So we are sure that there is progress. Also, by working, let's say, with GitHub, you can see the rate of commits. It's not very indicative, but we ask people to commit their work relatively often to have daily commits, not counting the number of lines of code, but just seeing that there is progress. And then that gets picked up into the continuous integration and delivery pipeline with the nice tools that we use, and then it gets right away delivered into our development environment. So it's very easy to see the actual result of people. For UX UI designers, I mean, you can clearly see what people are producing, what kind of designs are finished. For product managers, you should communicate with them all the time. So I think with the right employ of tools and meetings and these practices, you should be able to see the progress. We also have another tool that was recommended by King Tedros in the chat, which is toggle.com, as a good time tracker for the team. I have not used this one specifically, but thank you for the recommend. Also, we have one more question. How do you structure your work daily to stay effective but not overwork? Personally, I find that it's hard to know when the day starts and ends, especially now. I agree with that. I'm not perfect at this either, I must say, especially with 2 kids. It's really hard, and I will not oversimplify everything in this world. So that's why I said this culture of experimentation is really important. I try to stick to some regular hours, but of course there are more stressful days when, let's say, after a block of meetings or a block of some sort of deep work, I do like bigger breaks and then I continue later. So usually in these times of COVID-19, my days stretch a bit longer. When the situation is normal and when the kids are in kindergarten, then it's a bit easier to structure your work. Jessica Shelley said from our team at MOP gave a nice advice here in the chat to use some nice headsets, noise cancelling headsets, and I agree with that. I'm also using one, as you can see. Doesn't matter what the product is, it's a really good productivity hack. Also, if you're working from a more noisy environment like a cafe or something like that. Oscar wrote now that another tool for time tracking that is connected to Asana and Trello is Astrid AI, a chatbot AI that helps you stay focused on bigger tasks. I have not used that one, but I will check it out as well. Asim is now asking fixed remote office workday schedule versus random. Yes, I think that I kind of answered this question, which I think that the ideal thing to have is a fixed schedule. But nowadays, as I said, if you have kids around or I don't know if you have pets or also sometimes something unexpected happens, you cannot plan every day. Maybe somebody got sick, you need to drive somewhere, maybe something happened. So, but you should stick to some sort of fixed schedule, yes. All right. Yeah, Oscar, what do you think? Should we round up now because we are reaching to 4 p.m. Maybe people need to work a bit as well today, so so we don't use all the time.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining, and thank you, Resad, for this. It was great.
Thank you.
So where can people get in touch with you and find more information if they want?
Yeah, I will write just my my email address here on the chat. So feel free to send me an email or ask me anything. I'm pretty happy to help with your remote work routines or whatever questions you have. And thank you, Oscar, as well again, and Norrsken House for facilitating this event. And yeah, see you soon on another occasion.
Thank you very much. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, guys. Bye.